I think this is probably one of the most powerful groups in the country. We've slain a lot of dragons, and I still scratch my head how we've done it in San Antonio, but it's been quite a remarkable journey. I guess my story starts with when I was president of the Texas Public Policy Foundation, going back into the 90s and around the year 2000, and our wonderful planners in San Antonio wanted to build a light rail system. And that experience really changed me as a person, because I think, not up to that point, I had kind of thought government was a little bit inefficient, and this is when we started fighting light rail, I realized that there's a really active agenda. It's not just government's a little bit wasteful sometimes. It's an agenda that is full of a bunch of blatant lies that are repeated over and over and over in city after city. And so that bumped up my level of activism by about 300%, and it changed me for the rest of my life. But back in 2000, we beat the light rail by 70-30 at the ballot box, which was a humiliating defeat. I don't know if that level of defeat's been matched anywhere since. Wendell Cox and Tom Rubin did great research for us, and we just mined the data from that research and had press conference after press conference, and the word spread. The strategic advantage that we have, and this is one of my key talking points, is that the other side lies so much that, if you can point out their lies, then that's all you have to achieve to win, because once the people believe that the agency's lying, instead of just there's differences of opinion about what something might cost or something, once they agree that they're liars, then they won't believe anything the transit agency or the politicians say about it. And I think that we achieved that in San Antonio, and at that point there was nothing the planners or the politicians could do to dig their way out of it. I think one difference that I'll have with, and certainly Jim Skagg's story, is that we had virtually no real money to spend to fight this thing. It was just the power of our words and the research that we had from our friends, and but the word spread. When I was at TPPF in 2000, we allocated that we had spent about $45,000 of our resources on research and copies and things of that nature, and of course the politicians accused us of violating our tax-exempt status, and sure enough, we got an IRS audit after we won that election, and but we were completely cleared of. They didn't find that we'd done anything wrong. This year, in our defeat of the streetcar, it was just we had all volunteer effort. We had a few expenses to cover some legal court costs, but that was about it. So this. After they lost light rail in 2000 in San Antonio, they proposed a tax in San Antonio in 2004 called an Advanced Transportation District Sales Tax. And it was to go half for roads, half for transit, but the transit part was never to be used for light rail and never to be used for toll roads. And so it was half for buses basically and half for roads. The people passed it. Then the legislation was passed to authorize that tax, legislation at the state level, and the way the money was supposed to split out was half was going to go to the transit agency, and a fourth of it was going to go to the city, and a fourth of it was going to go to TxDOT and the county. And those last two portions were for roads. Then in 2011, in the dead of the night, they passed a bill in the state legislature to exempt the transit agency from having to get voter approval on bonds that was backed by this new tax. And nobody really noticed that that was passed. And so then they decided they were going to unveil this idea to build a streetcar, which is, of course, they said, totally different from light rail. So none of the promises that we made about not spending this advanced transportation district money on light rail apply, because streetcar is different. And we fought that in the media for a long time. But we, I think, argued effectively that light rail and streetcar were, of course, the same thing. It was kind of laughable to say that they weren't. And of course, the U.S. Department of Transportation technically said that they were the same thing when that tax was passed. Later, they created a subcategory of streetcar that I think it's a subcategory of light rail, but it was a separate category called streetcar, and that was what they were basing their arguments on, that there was this separate definition. But they thought they were vulnerable a little bit on that issue, so they orchestrated a swap with the Texas Department of Transportation. They the county wanted to give $92 million of its road funds from this ATD tax and give it to build the streetcar, because our county judge was very keen on building this thing. And so they decided to take that $92 million and swap it with TxDOT. We'll give you $92 million and you use it to build roads. You give us $92 million and we'll use your money to build the streetcar. And you know, it was amazing how many politicians thought that was, we fixed it. It's perfectly appropriate money laundering operation. What's the problem? So the county judge said, you know, we need to quit talking about whether or not we're going to build a streetcar. We're going to build it. It's a done deal. There's no way to stop it. You know, move on. He said this in speech after speech for years, and we were not going to give up. I had a guy, Mike Dennis, who had been an attorney. He was a licensed attorney, but not licensed to practice in Texas. He just was a volunteer, and he did some great legal research. Combined with the research that Randall O'Toole did for us, we had everything we needed. And he discovered that every bond in Texas has to be approved by the Texas Attorney General, every municipal bond that's issued. And that goes across his desk, and normally he just rubber stamps it. We told him what was going on and asked him to disapprove these bonds, which he did. And oh my gosh, all hell broke loose. You couldn't. They just went apoplectic, and so the transit agency sued the Attorney General. It went into the liberal Travis County Court here in Austin. The liberal judge ruled against the Attorney General. I called Leonard Leo with the Federalist Society in Washington, who I've known for many years, and I said, is there an attorney you could recommend that might want to take up this case for us to intervene? And they found a great appellate law firm in Houston, a big name firm, and these two guys volunteered and they just did fantastic work. And we intervened and we appealed to went to the appeals court. We won at the appeals court level, and he remanded it back to the lower court and with instructions. And then the AG, I think, just kind of lost, I don't know, he put up kind of a weak defense in that appeal. But, and so we did not prevail at the lower court. But by that point, the damage was done, because we had gotten so much media coverage that, I mean, we had $1 million of earned media that came from all of the hullabaloo over that lawsuit and everything. And so we had achieved our objective at that point. They had this, Express News did this big, huge front page article about you know, like, I don't know, it sounded like some kind of scandal that I had called the AG and, you know, asked him to disapprove these bonds. It was some nefarious thing, and, you know, I don't know why, I don't know why they felt the need to do that article, but it was very helpful. So, just really in closing, through legal research, we finally determined that our only course of action was to amend our city charter to the city. We found out that the city has to give permission to anybody that's going to do anything in a city street. So if you're a telecom company or a water company or anything, and you're going to dig in the street, you have to get permission from the city. So we found out that if you're going to put in a streetcar system, you're going to have to get permission from the city. And again, it's usually just a rubber stamp kind of thing that you don't pay much attention to, but we clung on to that provision, and we said we're going to amend the city charter. Since the legislature had taken away our right to vote on light rail, we're going to put that right back into the city charter, and we're going to amend the city charter to say that if you're going to build light rail or streetcar, you must get the approval from the voters. And we collected 27,000 petitions. At that moment, the firefighters union was in a battle with the city about their health care benefits, and that how much money was being spent on the core function of fire protection versus frivolous things. And so they decided to join forces with us to highlight this waste that should be going to police and fire instead of on these wasteful projects. And so they helped us collect 27,000 petitions, signatures in San Antonio to amend the charter. The city attorney said after we collected the signatures and turned them in that they were all invalid because you know, some vague interpretation of the requirements for these petitions. And so we were going to sue them all over that. And having learned the lesson that even though we lost at the state level, just the fact that we were in the courts, in the newspaper, creating controversy, they started to realize that even if they won in court, they were going to lose in the court of public opinion if this thing stayed in the paper every week. So, so we had a very tense negotiating session with the city attorney and his, it was eight or 10 attorneys, of course, against us, and we had found some records through an open records request. We found that the county alone had spent $250,000 on attorney's fees just trying to respond to us. It was kind of laughable. They probably spent $500,000 total over the whole time. We ended up asking them for the exact language we wanted on the ballot, and they gave us what we asked for. And so exactly what we wanted went on the ballot, and it passed by 67 to 33. So we now have that. And I guess we celebrate, but it's like all we got back was what the legislature took away from us in 2011. So, we really didn't make progress. We just restored what we had once had. So, I think that the lessons learned from this would be that even a losing legal effort will win because it helps you earn a lot of good media. They will stop at nothing. They do stupid things because they're so desperate to build these expensive projects, and it hurts their reputation eventually. Our opposition was bipartisan. We had LULAC and the Firefighters Union and the Tea Party, and so we had support from all quarters of the city. And I'm running for the State House of Representatives right now and doing a lot of block walking, and it's remarkable how people who don't get the newspaper, they know a lot of details about these streetcar issues. And I, quite frankly, don't really know where they got it. Maybe talk radio or, watching the the 2-minute segments on the television when we were on the news, but it's really remarkable to me how just virally this stuff has spread all across the city. And I think most importantly, if you prove they're lying and you get people to understand the lies, then I think you've won across the board. And we're now going to be discussing the wonderful commuter rail project that they want to build between San Antonio and Austin. And it's the same story, you know, overestimate the benefits and underestimate the costs. So, you know, here we go again. And it really is frustrating that we keep fighting these battles over and over and over. And I know Randall this year and last was promoting to Congress that we start distributing federal transportation funds on a formula basis. And I really think that's very, very important that we achieve that. I don't think that local MPOs and even state agencies or the federal government can be trusted any longer. When these funds are distributed on a political basis, they're just wasted and we don't have the money. We've got to convert it to a formula basis that's pegged to improvements in safety, measurable improvements in safety, and measurable improvements in congestion. And let the money flow where whatever mode does that the best, which I think will always be adding road capacity. It won't be bike lanes or transit. And so that's the strategic goal that I hope that this group can figure out a way to do going forward. Thank you very much.